Chapter 1527. Little Luo. Seeing Yiqing Luo's surrounding aura gradually stabilized, Zhou Xian immediately went forward and pulled Yiqing Luo into his arms. It was extremely gentle, filled with worry and anxiety. His profound energy was roaming around her body. He checked her body to see if she was injured. After confirming that she was unscathed, even the external injuries she had suffered from the imperial palace's old granny had completely healed. He heaved a sigh of relief. "Xian, I've advanced." Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with surprise. She couldn't believe it herself. He was actually this lucky. This trip to the flame lair was a trip to level up for her. Zhou Xian hugged her delicate body tightly, his voice hoarse. I know. His heart was still unable to calm down. Heavens knew how much willpower he had used to restrain himself from rushing forward and pulling Yiqing Luo into his arms. The moment Vermilion Bird rushed towards Yiqing Luo for the first time in his life, he felt a suffocating sense of anxiety. Yiqing Luo was enveloped in flames as she fell into the tribulation of advancement. Let out a groan of pain. His heart ached fiercely. But he knew that he couldn't go up at this moment and disturb Yiqing Luo. This was the opportunity for Yiqing Luo to advance to the Sky Profound grade. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He also hoped that Yiqing Luo could gradually mature. To become a powerhouse, one had to experience pain. Yiqing Luo leaned against his chest. She could smell the elegant sandalwood scent on his body. She closed her eyes slightly. Sky Profound Realm. She had finally become a profound practitioner of the Sky Profound Realm. Finally, she was one step closer to Zhou Xian. Student Yiqing Luo. A deep voice sounded out, interrupting the two of them from snuggling together. Yiqing Luo lifted her eyes from Zhou Xian's arms and looked at Gui Wu. Since you've already formed a contract with the Vermilion Bird, let's get the Vermilion Bird to tell us how to leave this place. Gui Wu's expression was cold. The students are still waiting for us. Yiqing Luo nodded her head. Now was not the time to stay here. It's not like there aren't any ways to leave. A sharp voice rang beside Yiqing Luo's ears. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and saw a palm-sized bird standing on her shoulder. He looked at it up close. The phoenix feathers were as red as fire, and there were even red electric currents flowing through them. What way? Yiqing Luo asked. The Vermilion Bird shook its small head. Its scarlet eyes were like two fiery red gems, dazzling and dazzling. Ugly woman, you should know that this place is the underground heart vein of the flame nest. This place concerns the lifeline of the entire flame nest. Yiqing Luo couldn't understand why Vermilion Bird would give her such a nickname. No matter how he looked at it, the word ugly didn't seem to fit her at all. Vermilion Bird paused and looked at her with disdain. Ugly woman, don't look at this holy beast with such ugly eyes. Although this holy beast has a contract with you, this holy beast is not like Little White who has no bottom line. Oyo. Chi retorted with a low growl. Enough. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and knocked on Vermilion Bird's head mercilessly. Tell me the main point. Vermilion Bird was like a little bird, chirping and jumping on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. That pair of wings flapped open and a scorching hot wind blew against Yiqing Luo's face. Chapter 1528. Being Tsundra once was cute. Being Tsundra twice was fun. But being Tsundra 3 times 4 times, or even countless times, that would make one sick of it. So what if Vermilion Bird was a sacred beast? Since it had already chosen to sign a life and death contract with her, then it should know its own position. He could bring out his incomparably noble identity as a sacred beast at any time and place. But it must have forgotten about it. It was no longer the Vermilion Bird from 10,000 years ago who could summon the wind and rain and just a cry could shake the heavens and earth. It was just a battle pet that she, Yiqing Luo, had signed a contract with. That was all. Yiqing Luo's threat made Vermilion Bird's scarlet-red eyes surging with flames. It flapped its little wings and flew one round around Yiqing Luo. Ugly woman, don't think that you can do anything to me just because I have signed a contract with you. I am telling you, I am willing to sign a contract with you because I can't bear to be separated from Little White, so I lowered my status. How dare you try to take advantage of me? It gave a cold snort, flapped its wings and flew towards the direction of the Sea of Fire. But after Vermilion Bird's wings flapped for some time, it realized that it had not moved an inch. Immediately following that, its tail was violently dragged back by a huge force. Vermilion Bird turned its head. His eyes met with a pair of enchanting eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. Yiqing Luo's hand was tugging its tail. He pulled it back mercilessly. The strength was so strong that Vermilion Bird couldn't help but let out a painful cry. The crowd was stunned. That was a Vermilion Bird sacred beast. How could Yiqing Luo be so ruthless? Or, because Yiqing Luo had an obedient sacred beast in her hand, so she didn't care about the other sacred beasts? Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to probe into the instructor's heart. At this moment she was staring at the Vermilion Bird which was still flapping its wings in her hand. Her eyes sunk slightly. She wanted to subdue Vermilion Bird. But what she needed was an obedient battle pet. If after signing a contract with her, Vermilion Bird had to maintain this high and mighty state, in the future it would be even more difficult to get along. After that he had a conflict with the Vermilion Bird, causing Chi-Chi to be caught in a dilemma. It would be better to either subdue the Vermilion Bird or leave it here. However, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess that Vermilion Bird would absolutely not be willing to stay in such a dark place. Otherwise, as the Vermilion Bird had said, it was doing this for Chi-Chi's sake. As long as he signed an equal contract with her, he would be able to be with Mu Chi-Chi. This life and death contract. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but ponder over Vermilion Bird's motive. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo grabbed the Vermilion Bird's tail, hung it upside down and walked directly towards the direction of the Sea of Fire. Since you've signed a contract with me, then treat me as your master. I won't keep any perverse companions by my side. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards slightly, but her squinted eyes didn't contain any hint of a smile. Since you're so against me, then I shall use my master's identity to announce the first mission. You Vermilion Bird, forever guard the heart vein until I come again. Yiqing Luo enunciated each word clearly and calmly. As soon as she finished speaking, she spread her fingers. The red bird in her hand fell into the Sea of Fire. Yiqing Luo turned around and walked away suavely. Let's go, let's find the exit. The two instructors looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze, totally unable to react in time. Chapter 1529. Yiqing Luo was too lazy to care about their reactions. She walked to Dmo Xian's side, held his arm and walked towards the direction of the heart vein entrance. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, Yiqing Luo silently counted in her heart. Immediately, when she counted to the 6th step, she raised her eyes and revealed a sly smile. At the same time, a sharp voice behind her spoke quickly. The way to leave the land of the root vein is to cross the Sea of Fire. The exit is at the end of the Sea of Fire. Without this sacred beast's help, none of you will be able to cross this Sea of Fire. Vermilion Bird's small body flew out of the Sea of Fire. Yiqing Luo paused her footsteps, slowly turned her head and looked at Vermilion Bird with a smile. I have more than one sacred beast. If you can cross the Sea of Fire, Chi-Chi can too. Moreover, my Xian's war pet is a 9-tailed fox. 9-tailed fox also belonged to the fire attribute. Because of Vermilion Bird, the Sea of Fire would not hurt Chi-Chi. And the 9-tailed fox would not be afraid of this level of fire. Vermilion Bird's flapping wings paused slightly. That pair of red beast eyes stared fiercely at Dmo Xian. It thought as long as it said it, it would be the only opportunity to leave the land of the root vein. If Yiqing Luo wanted to leave, she had to please it. But this ugly woman. He was really cunning to the extreme. She was exactly the same as that ugly woman 10,000 years ago. Tricking a beast without a word of disagreement. It gritted its teeth and said fiercely, if not for this sacred beast's escort, those flame beasts will absolutely swallow you up, not even leaving bones behind. Yiqing Luo touched her chin and nodded. What you said is very reasonable. All right, I will reluctantly let you escort. Vermilion Bird only felt that there was an unknown flame burning fiercely in its heart. Damn it, Yiqing Luo deliberately waited for it to say this. Damn it. Could it regret? Could it regret that it was so stupid to sign a life and death contract with Yiqing Luo? No matter how it cursed in its heart, Vermilion Bird still suppressed the displeasure in its heart and became a mount. Alright, so be it as a mount. But why was it carrying a few big men on its back? Instructor Luo, Instructor Li, Ghost Martial Artist, and Zhou Mo, who was holding Kitty Li, were all on Vermilion Bird's back. If there was only Yiqing Luo on his back, then it could only be said that she was his master's mount. But what right did a group of lowly humans have to sit on its noble back? The vermilion bird felt that its dignity as a sacred beast had been trampled underfoot by this group of humans. The vermilion bird expressed that it also had dignity. Could also go berserk. Vermilion bird, I advise you to listen to Master. Long Yunzhan, who was carefully carrying Tong Ziqing, was on Chi-Chi's back. It walked to the vermilion bird's side and whispered in beast language. This ugly woman is simply a she-devil. The vermilion bird cried out angrily. She's even more insane than that she-devil from 10,000 years ago. Chi-Chi shook her head. Master is actually very easy to get along with. You will understand Chi-Chi's words after being with Master for a long time. The vermilion bird snorted. I think I might never be able to understand. Chi-Chi didn't continue persuading it but only reminded, if you want to stay by Master's side, you'd better listen to Master, otherwise. Chi-Chi can guarantee that your days will be even more miserable than today. This is advice from you who had been ravaged by the she-devil. The vermilion bird's red eyes were filled with disdain. Chapter 1530. The vermilion bird expressed, can you still have some backbone as a holy beast? Whether vermilion bird was willing or not. In the end, the vermilion bird still carried the few men on her back and rushed above the sea of fire. Chi-Chi carried Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing on her back, as well as the unconscious Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian sat on Little Nine's back as they followed behind. The saint beast was extremely fast. In a short moment, the three beasts had already crossed a large sea of fire. As far as the eye could see. In all directions was a sea of fire that stretched as far as the eye could see. Vermilion bird, let me give you a name. Yiqing Luo sat cross-legged on the back of the nine-tailed fox and stared at the figure of the vermilion bird. I can't call you vermilion bird in front of outsiders. What's wrong with vermilion bird? Those stupid humans have to kneel and beg for mercy when they hear my name. The vermilion bird snorted. It didn't think there was anything wrong with its name. Yiqing Luo directly ignored vermilion bird's words and held her chin. Xian, Chi-Chi is called Chi-Chi, what do you think? It is called Baba, what do you think? Zhou Xian's eyes were filled with adoration. That's great. This holy beast doesn't want to be called Baba. How can such a lame name highlight the majesty of this sacred beast? The vermilion bird immediately cried out. After it finished howling, it recalled that Yiqing Luo didn't bother about it. Then it continued to roar. Even if I die, I won't call myself Baba. If you give this sacred beast this name, this sacred beast will perish together with you. It spun around and stopped in front of Yiqing Luo. The crimson eyes of the beast were wide open. He looked as if he was unafraid of death. It was as if making it call Baba was more serious than taking its life. Yiqing Luo, why did she feel that her naming ability was pretty good? 7788. How simple and crude was that? Chi-Chi nodded, agreeing with her master's point of view. It especially liked the name its master gave it. Qian. A low voice came from not far in front of them. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Ghost Marshal looking expressionlessly in their direction. Qian. Yiqing Luo murmured these two words. Was this the name that Gui Wu had given the vermilion bird? It was indeed not bad. All right. In the future, vermilion bird's name will be Qian. Yiqing Luo waved her hand and decided on the name vermilion bird. Qian, aren't you going to thank Master Gui Wu for giving you this name? The word bestowed. It pierced vermilion bird's ears. But thinking of the names Qian and Baba, it clenched its teeth and chose to abandon its bottom line, abandon its moral integrity, and arrogantly snorted in the direction of the ghost martial artist. This holy beast likes your name very much. This holy beast will reluctantly use this name. Yiqing Luo. She felt that vermilion bird's name should be Qiao. After the name was decided, Yiqing Luo looked down at the rolling magma and the flaming beast that would pop its head out from time to time and wave its arms. At the base of the fire lair. Wherever there was fire there would be fire beast. Those fire beasts were clearly exuding an extremely strong killing intent. It was as if it wanted to charge forward and drag them into the sea of fire, engulfing them completely. If Qian wasn't here, Yiqing Luo believed that these fire beasts would absolutely not be courteous. Qian, those cultivators who headed towards the fire lair were all engulfed by the fire beasts? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she seemed to have thought of something as she opened her mouth to ask. After the Imperial Tutor's prophecy, large groups of cultivators flocked into the fire lair. But none of them survived. At the base, Yiqing Luo didn't see any bones or any traces of other cultivators. Chapter 1531. This sacred beast hasn't been awake for a long time, but during this period of time when this sacred beast was awake, I indeed sensed quite a number of foolish humans, coming wave after wave to die. Mentioning this matter, Qi Yan's tone turned grave. Those profound practitioners were indeed burned by the flaming beasts to the point where not even their bones were left. Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian exchanged glances. Their guess was indeed right. The terror of the flame nest wasn't in the flame nest, but in the depths of the flame nest, which was the foundation ground. But how did those cultivators enter the flame nest's foundation ground? Didn't old man Tsang say? They were sucked into the foundation ground because of the profound qi battle between Zhu Xian and Zhou Xian, which led to the flame nest activating its self-protection mechanism. Those cultivators, how could they activate the flame nest self-protection mechanism? Those foolish humans to be able to enter the foundation ground is indeed very strange, and there's another point, which is also very strange. Vermilion Bird said, although the flame beast is the guardian beast of the foundation ground, but before it gets close to the heart vein, the flame beast will absolutely not casually launch an attack. But after those cultivators entered the foundation ground, the flame beast seemed to have gone mad, swallowing all the cultivators. Yiqing Luo caught the main point. What you mean is, the flame beast's rampage is not so simple? These foolish humans died, this sacred beast doesn't care, so whether it's simple or not, this sacred beast doesn't have a deep understanding. Vermilion Bird spread out its phoenix wings, swaying a stretch of seductive ripples. This sacred beast only knows after swallowing 3 batches of foolish humans no one else came again. 3 batches? And in batches? Which meant the number of people who were swallowed by the flame beast was extremely large. But, thinking about it, it made sense. Yiqing Luo had crossed hands with the flame beast, and understood how powerful it was. Especially, that ability which kept on deriving no matter how strong the person was, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Those cultivators, naturally wouldn't be as lucky as them. Following Chi-Chi's directions, they found the heart vein, and using Chi-Chi's relationship, they obtained Vermilion Bird's protection. Those flame beasts wanted to swallow them, but they feared Vermilion Bird's prestige. This holy beast has another strange matter. Qi Yan turned to look at Yiqing Luo, pointed to her with his sharp mouth, and swept over Zhou Xian, you, and it then looked in Zhu Wuxian's direction. The 3 of you are very strange. What's wrong? Yiqing Luo asked. After they were sucked into the foundation, they were entangled by the flame beast. Qi Yan swung his colorful phoenix tail and gestured to the group of people on his back. And the flame beast has never entangled you. Instructor Luo immediately nodded. Yes. After we were sucked in, we were entangled by several flame beasts. Fortunately, Master Gui Wu was there. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would have been devoured by the flame beasts. Wave after wave of flaming beasts. Now that they thought about it, their scalps still felt numb. Yiqing Luo fell into deep thoughts. After she was sucked into the foundation, she did not encounter any flame beasts. After meeting Zhu Wuxian, they met Zhou Xian. At the very least, he hadn't encountered any flame beasts in the past few hours. And the appearance of the flame beast, just as they were about to find the heart meridian under Chi-Chi's guidance, all of a sudden it appeared. Following that, it was wave after wave. And the number kept on increasing. Chapter 1532. These flame beasts are indeed acting strangely today. Qi Yan lowered his head and looked at the magma, constantly waving his arms as if he wanted to rush up. Ugly woman, what have you done to these flame beasts? Yiqing Luo still didn't respond to Qi Yan's words. She pondered deeply for a moment and raised her eyes to look at Zhou Xian as she lowered her voice. Ah Xian, could it be? She already had a guess in her heart. Zhou Xian's expression was calm as he nodded. Don't worry, I'm here, don't be afraid. Zhou Xian nodded. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped loudly. South Waves Continent, Flame Nest. It was the Heavenly Dean and the Dark Forces Wolf Saint technique and Yiqing Jian who had decided to extract all the students' souls here and offer them to the King of Darkness. In other words, coincidentally, the Dean of the General Academy had invited Gui Wu and Zhou Mo to train the students of the various academies. The Heavenly Dean didn't need to think of any excuses. Gui Wu immediately brought the students to the flame lair. Wolf Saint Art and Yi Qingqian had long been prepared to extract the students' souls here. Naturally, he was already prepared. The reason why these flaming beasts were so violent was most likely related to the dark forces. Thinking about it, the profound practitioners of the various great forces who had swarmed into the fire lair must have had their souls extracted by the dark forces with the help of the flame beasts. If that was the case, the dark forces were too cruel. Not only the corpses but the flaming beasts had also devoured them, leaving nothing behind. Even their souls would become food for the King of Darkness. He thought that this matter might be related to the dark forces. Yiqing Luo immediately urged Qi Yan to speed up and lead the way. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo were by her side. As for the students, other than the two instructors, there were only the elders from the headquarters. If they encountered the dark forces, they would definitely not be a match for the dark forces. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly congealed, Gui Wu, who had been paying close attention to Yiqing Luo, his eyes gradually darkened. And the proud Qi Yan, listening to Yiqing Luo's constant urging, the rebellious thoughts made it deliberately slow down its own speed. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. If not for the fact that Qi Aojia was carrying the ghost doctor and the rest on her back, she would definitely kick it into the sea of fire. Of course, the reason why Yiqing Luo was so anxious, it wasn't that she cared about the students from the various academies. She had absolute confidence that if the dark forces really took the opportunity to attack the students, they would not be able to escape. The students of the devil class would definitely think of a way to escape. The reason why she urged Qi Yan to speed up like this, it was because she did not want the dark forces conspiracy to succeed. Right now, the King of Darkness needed a large number of young men and women's souls as food to unlock the so-called seal. The moment the King of Darkness undid the seal, he would die. The strength of the dark forces would definitely have a qualitative leap. At that time, it wouldn't be as easy to deal with as it was now. The dark forces were obviously very interested in her. He wanted to obtain her profound heart jade by every possible means. He wanted to take her away again. What would happen if the dark forces were allowed to develop? Yiqing Luo didn't want to find trouble for herself. It was better to do it before trouble came. He wanted to cut off this source of trouble first. Most importantly, Yiqing Luo had a premonition. Chapter 1533. That King of Darkness who was addressed as King by the dark forces would appear in this world. Otherwise, the dark forces would not take such a huge risk to plan with the Heavenly Academy, to let the various academies' students be buried in the blaze nest. After all, once something happened to the various academies' students, the students' families would definitely investigate thoroughly and would not let it go easily. The dark forces dared to set up such a plan. They would definitely think of a way to retaliate. Then, the only way was to shock them with their abilities. Yiqing Luo's tone was icy cold as she prepared to threaten them. A deep and cold voice interrupted her before she could say anything. Speed up immediately and leave this place. That voice was thick and powerful. Everyone's gazes converged towards that direction. Even the unconscious Tong Ziqing and Zhu Wu Exen were awakened by that voice. It was Gui Wu. His face was cold and sunken as a pair of malicious eyes were suffused with a biting cold glint. That invisible imposing manner made one's back turn cold as they submitted themselves to him. Even Qi Yan was intimidated by this imposing manner. With a flap of his wings, he subconsciously increased his flying speed. Chi-Chi and Little Nine immediately caught up. For a moment, the atmosphere was silent as no one spoke a word. On Chi-Chi's back, Tong Ziqing was awoken by Gui Wu's low growl. The minute she opened her eyes, she felt an intense pain all over her body. Her back felt as if there were densely packed ants wriggling incessantly, bringing with it an unbearable piercing pain. She moved as her brows creased tightly. But her hands were unable to move. Tong Ziqing struggled. "Don't move." A deep voice rang beside her ear. That voice was so familiar that it made her heart tremble. The pained expression on his face froze in that instant. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. Following that, she opened her eyes. An extremely handsome but expressionless face was reflected in her pupils. Tong Ziqing's eyelashes trembled even more. Her eyes revealed a sliver of astonishment, as though she couldn't believe the person in front of her. "You're injured, don't move." Long Yunzhan saw the young lady in his arms staring at him without blinking as though she was in a daze, so he opened his mouth to explain, "Qing Luo has already taken a look for you, bear with it for this period of time and the wound on your back will be healed." But what he said, Tong Ziqing didn't seem to hear it. Her eyes were filled with an infatuated luster as she stared straight at Long Yunzhan. Those azure blue eyes were as clear as ice. But for some reason she felt a sense of satisfaction in her heart. She raised her hand, her fingers trembling, wanting to touch the face that was so close to her. He wanted to make sure that everything before him wasn't a dream. Only in her dreams would Long Yunzhan be by her side. It was only in his dreams that the person reflected in Long Yunzhan's eyes would be her. The moment Tong Ziqing raised her hand, she felt a heart-wrenching pain that made her face twitch in pain. Long Yunzhan immediately stopped her and comforted her in a low voice. "Ziqing, I'm here, don't move. After you recover you can do whatever you want." Her voice was still cold and clear. But Tong Ziqing heard some gentleness. That's right, gentleness. From Long Yunzhan she could actually see the gentleness that belonged to her. Tong Ziqing shut her eyes as a bitter smile appeared on her lips. This was indeed a dream. How could Long Yunzhan possibly treat her gently? This dream was so real. So real that she knew it was a dream. Chapter 1534. Ziqing. Seeing that she had closed her eyes, Long Yunzhan immediately called out Tong Ziqing's name worriedly. He frowned slightly, thinking that Tong Ziqing had closed her eyes because she couldn't bear the pain from her wounds. After waiting for a long time, Tong Ziqing did not reply. Long Yunzhan immediately hugged her shoulders tightly, and his voice became even softer. "Ziqing, where do you feel uncomfortable? Or does the wound hurt badly?" That soft whispering voice. Instantly Tong Ziqing's eyes turned red. When had Long Yunzhan ever spoken in such a gentle voice? Even when facing Yiqing Luo, Long Yunzhan was still expressionless, calm and indifferent. But at this moment he was so gentle. He could hear the tension in Long Yunzhan's voice. She could also feel how unnatural the tight muscles of the right arm that was wrapped around her were. Long Yunzhan wasn't used to being gentle. But to her he tried his best to be gentle. Such gentleness, not only did it not satisfy Tong Ziqing's heart. On the contrary, it made her want to cry. They were not tears of joy. Instead, she herself did not understand the tears. This dream was too real. Unknowingly, Tong Ziqing felt that the corners of her eyes were actually a little wet. "Ziqing." Long Yunzhan panicked. The tears at the corner of Tong Ziqing's eyes seeped into his palm. Long Yunzhan, who had never taken care of a lady, instantly stretched out his hand helplessly as he wiped the corners of Tong Ziqing's eyes as he opened his mouth dryly. "Ziqing, tell me if you're not feeling well. Qing Luo is just beside you. You can." "Class leader." Tong Ziqing choked with sobs, her voice extremely hoarse. Long Yunzhan immediately stopped speaking. Tong Ziqing moved her lips. Long Yunzhan's figure was vaguely reflected in her tearful eyes. "Class leader, don't be so gentle with me, I'm scared." She was already choking on her last few words. Long Yunzhan's body stiffened. His azure blue eyes flickered with a gloomy luster. Tong Ziqing's extremely pale face was like a weeping beauty. No matter how one looked at it, it made one's heart ache. Don't be gentle with her? Is she afraid of his gentleness? Women were really hard to understand. Qing Luo told him to treat Ziqing gently. But Ziqing rejected his gentleness. Long Yunzhan was truly unable to understand Tong Ziqing's thoughts. However, when he saw how Tong Ziqing tried to hold back her tears, she couldn't help but cry. Somewhere in her heart, there was a faint throbbing pain. He slowly loosened his grip and placed Tong Ziqing in Chi-Chi's fur. The moment Tong Ziqing landed on Chi-Chi's back, she shrunk to the side. It seemed like he didn't want to come into contact with Long Yunzhan at all. Long Yunzhan's outstretched hand froze in midair, looking at that delicate body that was trembling uncontrollably. In the end, he withdrew his hand and sat to the side, quietly watching Tong Ziqing. His mind was filled with countless thoughts. Tong Ziqing sobbed silently. Tears soaked Chi-Chi's fur and stuck to her face. She didn't know why she was crying. He also didn't understand why he had to avoid Long Yunzhan. She clearly begged Long Yunzhan to get close to her. He clearly wanted to get Long Yunzhan's attention. However, when Long Yunzhan's gentleness towards her made her realize that everything was not a dream, His heart sank into a state of anxiety and unease. She blocked a move for Long Yunzhan and was almost engulfed by the flames, turning into ashes. It wasn't because she wanted to exchange for Long Yunzhan's sympathy. Chapter 1535. If it was only because of this that Long Yunzhan felt guilty towards her. She would rather not have this gentleness. Long Yunzhan continued to treat her gently. She was afraid that she would get used to this gentleness and sink into it. At that time he would never be able to extricate himself. There were no more words between the two of them. Zhou Xian, who was lying behind Chi, looked coldly at the two people in front of him. In his heart he snorted disdainfully at the relationship between the two. The woman clearly loved the man. However, she had no choice but to push the man away. And the man clearly cared about the woman. However, he didn't say anything to comfort her for a long time and really left the woman. Even he, who had never cared about the affairs between men and women, knew. A woman's words usually didn't match her heart. Tell him not to be so gentle. The subtext was for him to be more gentle. Zhou Xian was extremely disdainful of such feelings. In his opinion, since he liked someone, that person must belong to him. He wanted him to see the woman he loved deeply with another man. He could not be that magnanimous. Not to mention she was bashful and didn't even dare to say that she liked him. Even dare not say the love. Is it really love? Zhu Wuxian gave a cold laugh as he immediately turned his vision towards one side, towards Yiqing Luo, who was sitting on the back of the nine-tailed fox, snuggling up to Zhou Xian. The cold light in his eyes was faintly discernible. We're here. With a clear cry, the scarlet flaming wings brought a gust of strong wind. Soon after, everyone felt a scorching wave of air pressing down on their faces. We're out. Zhou Xian carried Kitty Li and jumped down from Scarlet Flame's back. He glanced around the room. This was the place where they had been sucked into the foundation grounds. It was that piece of land which had been turned into ruins by Yiqing Luo and Imperial Palace's granny, as well as Zhu Wuxian and Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo and the others came down from the sacred beast's back. When everyone was standing on the ground, she and Zhou Xian then kept their respective sacred beasts properly. Let's return to the outer perimeter first. After Gui Wu said those words, his figure flashed as he hurriedly rushed back in the direction he had come from. His pace was extremely fast and the expression on his face was serious. Clearly Gui Wu had also sensed the danger. Hey, all wait for me. Before Zhou Xian could finish his words, Gui Wu's figure had already disappeared from everyone's sight. Zhou Xian clicked his tongue and muttered to himself, he's so impatient again. Only I can stand his character. Then he lowered his eyes. His almond-shaped eyes were glowing as he stared at the person in his arms. His slender fingers hooked around her chin. Little wild cat, this young master will go take a look at Ao's condition first. After that, this young master will personally train you. Bah! Frivolous man, hurry up and let go of Kitty. Kitty won't train with you. Kitty Li gritted her teeth and glared at him angrily. This time, Zhou Xian didn't act the same as before. She took the opportunity to attack Kitty Li. He took the opportunity to tease Kitty Li. He really put Kitty Li on the ground. You. Kitty Li stared at Zhou Xian in astonishment. She couldn't believe that this frivolous man would really let go of her. Only her astonishment didn't last for more than a few breaths. In the eyes that were like the vast sea of stars, the extremely devilish face suddenly enlarged. Following that, Zhou Xian's warm thin lips landed in between Kitty Li's brows. That touch was extremely soft and warm. As though this kiss had fallen right into her heart. Kitty Li's heart suddenly pounded. Before she could react, the figure in front of her had already disappeared. Chapter 1536. Kitty Li stood there in a daze. She could still vaguely hear Zhou Xian's whisper in her ear. He said, when the training starts, the kisses won't stop here. Her cheeks were inexplicably dyed red. It was as if she was on fire, making her extremely shy. By the time she regained her senses, Kitty Li saw Yiqing Luo and Yan Shaoyi's mischievous smiles. Kitty Li stomped her feet angrily. That frivolous man, he actually flirted with Kitty again. Kitty must bite him to death. This chop caused Kitty Li to be stunned once again. The injuries she had suffered at the hands of the Imperial Palace's old granny had completely healed. If she was still in the Foundation land, it would be difficult for her to even stand. Therefore, whether it was fighting against the flaming beasts or walking on foot, Zhou Mo continued to hold her in his arms. But now she just kept stomping her feet. He did not feel any pain coming from his body. He circulated his Xianxia in his body. His external and internal injuries were indeed completely healed. Was it Zhou Mo? The expression on Kitty Lee's face was rather complicated. Let's rush back to the wooden shed to take a look at the situation. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to bother about what happened between Li Mao and Zhou Mo. From Zhou Mo's attitude, Yiqing Luo didn't feel any bit of malicious intent. As the princess of the cat-beast clan, Kitty Lee's perception was the strongest. Although she said that she disliked Zhou Mo very much, but if she really felt Zhou Mo's malice with Kitty Lee's fierce nature, she would definitely not let Zhou Mo do anything to her, even if it meant perishing together. Right now the most important thing was to get back to the wooden shed. He wanted to see if the students had been taken advantage of by the dark forces. The group of people immediately followed the path they came from and hurriedly rushed back. Not far from the wooden shed, there was an open space that could hold about 5,000 people. More than 1,000 students were undergoing excruciating torture. They had already run 5 laps around this place. He ran until he was out of breath. Instructor Ren and Instructor Fong did not give them any time to rest. Then he arranged the next squat training followed by a set of physical training. There were 5 types of physical training. After the training of these 5 categories, Li Tianlan was stunned. Only then could he enter the stage of Qi training. These students were suffering unspeakably. There were already quite a number of students who lost their ability to move after running 5 laps and directly fainted. Some students were already out of breath and fell to the ground when they reached the second segment of squats. There were also students who had an advantage and managed to reach the 4th category. Of the students who managed to achieve the 4th category, at least 20 of them were students from the devil class, mixed with a few students from other academies. Xianxia, who was still in the 2nd category, panted heavily. She kept squatting and standing up, squatting and standing up. Their hearts were on the brink of collapse. Yiqing Luo, that slut. We are suffering here, but she ran away. Xianxia gritted his teeth in anger. Zhou Xian was standing by the side as she was so tired that her forehead was filled with sweat. Goddess Qian, Master Gui Wu and Instructor Zhou have personally gone to catch that slut Yiqing Luo. When they return, that slut's reputation will definitely be swept clean. Xianxian's face turned gloomy as he thought of how carefree and unfettered Yiqing Luo might be right now. The jealousy and hatred in his heart grew. Chapter 1537. Zhou Xian's expression stiffened slightly as she pursed her lips in grievance. Goddess Qian, I am. She had obviously followed Xianxian's instructions. This did not achieve the desired effect. How could she be blamed for this? But after meeting Xianxian's cold eyes, Zhou Xian cleverly kept her mouth shut. She turned and pleaded in a low voice. It's my fault. Goddess Qian, it's all my fault. I'm useless. Please don't be angry with me. She was now on Xianxian's side. Several actions had provoked public anger. The other students of the Heavenly Academy wanted to skin her alive the moment they saw her. The only person Zhou Xian could rely on now was Xianxian. Xianxian snorted coldly as her willowy eyebrows knitted tightly together. She turned her head away as if she didn't want to pay attention to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian was flustered. After a few rounds of pleading, Xianxian's expression still did not ease. She bit her lower lip as if she had made a difficult decision. Goddess Qian, if you really want that slut's life, I have a way. Xianxian glanced at her disdainfully. What way do you have? Come with me to see someone. Zhou Xian clenched her fist as if she thought of that person, and her delicate body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Xianxian didn't notice Zhou Xian's abnormality. But when he heard her say this, his tone was obviously a lot more dignified. Xianxian raised her brows. Who can help me take that slut's life? You will know when you get there. Zhou Xian saw Xianxian's interest and immediately persuaded. Goddess Qian, I will not let you down again. Looking at Zhou Xian's firm eyes and her pleading look, Xianxian pondered suspiciously. If Zhou Xian had someone she could rely on, how could he possibly be entangled around her? But looking at Zhou Xian's expression, it didn't seem like she was lying. Could it be? Zhou Xian really had a way to find someone to take Yiqing Luo's life? If she was able to kill Yiqing Luo and not suspect her. It wasn't impossible for him to meet the person that Zhou Xian was talking about. In any case, Zhou Xian didn't have the guts to scheme against her. Thinking of this, Xianxia squinted her cold and arrogant beautiful eyes and snorted lightly, "I will give you one more chance. If this time, you are still unable to take Yiqing Luo's life, you know the consequences." Yes. Zhou Xian nodded vigorously and excitedly replied, "Yes," several times. Suddenly, an extremely noisy voice came from the crowd. Immediately after, the two instructors called out in joy, "Master Gui Wu! Ghost Martial Master!" Had Gui Wu and the others returned? Xianxia and Zhou Xian immediately turned their gazes towards Gui Wu. Sure enough, an extremely cold and indifferent young man in a black robe appeared before everyone's eyes. That pair of cold, piercing eyes revealed a light that was extremely inconsistent with that face. Sweeping his gaze across the students present, Gui Wu asked in an indifferent voice, "Did anything happen?" Replying to Master, "Everything is normal and there is no danger." Instructor Ren raised his smiling face as he reported respectfully. Gui Wu nodded his head and immediately turned around. Placing his hands behind his back, he didn't say another word and left the empty space. Xianxia and Zhou Xian exchanged glances. The two of them didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure beside Gui Wu. Could it be? Chapter 1538. Before long, Zhou Mo's figure flew over in a hurry. He paused for a moment, looked around and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He had known Gui Wu for nearly 2 years. He more or less had some understanding of the ghost warrior's temperament. When they were still in the sky above the sea of fire, Gui Wu saw Yiqing Luo's grave expression and immediately changed his expression, forcing Qi Yan to speed up. He immediately understood Gui Wu's thoughts. Something might have happened to these students. On the surface, Gui Wu did not have any good feelings towards the students from the various academies. However, deep in his heart he still cared about these students. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up on his most beloved cultivation and spent all his time training these students. Fortunately, these students were all fine. Zhou Mo heaved a long sigh of relief. "Old Ren, where's Ah Wu?" Instructor Ren shook his head. Master Gui Wu stood here for a while before leaving. "Thank you for your hard work." After saying this, Zhou Mo's figure disappeared from everyone's sight. The two instructors looked at each other. They really did not understand what was going on with these two great Buddhas coming one after the other. Could it be student Yiqing Luo had already been murdered? This thought made the two instructors' hearts tremble. Towards this classmate of Yiqing Luo, they rather admired her. After all, after so many years of being an instructor, he had never met a student like Yiqing Luo. If such an outstanding student were to really be harmed in the flame nest, what a pity. The two instructors looked at each other and shook their heads regretfully. With a sigh, they separated. Not far away, Xianxia and Zhou Xian, who were drenched in sweat and had no strength left in their bodies, had been paying close attention to the two instructors' expressions. After seeing the regretful expressions on the two's faces, Xianxia's eyes lit up. Looks like Master Gui Wu and Instructor Zhou didn't manage to get that slut Yiqing Luo back. That seems to be the case. Zhou Xian couldn't laugh anymore. If Yiqing Luo wasn't found, which meant that something had happened to Yiqing Luo. In other words, Xianxia no longer needed to make use of her. Moreover, the temptation and fawning that she had tossed to Xianxia just now were no longer there. The flame lair is such a dangerous place. No matter how powerful that bitch is, it's impossible for her to return alive. Xianxia gritted his teeth as he spoke, his eyes shooting out a cold, killing intent. It would be best if those two trash from Devil class who went to look for the little slut also died outside. Zhou Xian carefully echoed from the side. But the smile on his face was so forced. Xianxia also noticed Zhou Xian's expression after gritting his teeth. Then the corners of her mouth curled into a beautiful but cold smile. Student Zhou, since the little B** teeth is dead, I think our cooperation should end here. Goddess Xianxian. Zhou Xian raised her head in astonishment. She hadn't expected that Xianxian would burn the bridge so quickly. Xianxian wiped the sweat off his forehead. Her overly long bangs stuck to her face, but it made her face, which was full of smiles, look a little flirtatious. That pair of beautiful eyes flashed with a profound meaning. Zhou Xian's heart tightened. A sense of danger spread in his heart. Xianxia, had developed killing intent towards her. That's right. Xianxia had always been noble and elegant in front of others, as cold and elegant as a fairy who had left the secular world. But she had been following beside Xianxia and knew his real face. Chapter 1539. Whereas on the other side, Devil class and other students also sensed that something was amiss as all of their faces revealed an anxious and uneasy expression. They had already completed the 5 rounds of physical training. It was resting time now. They pestered the 2 instructors to inquire about Yiqing Luo and Long Yunzhan's situation. How would the 2 instructors know about the situation? But from Gui Wu and Zhou Mo earlier, they saw their complicated expressions. Deep in their hearts they thought that Yiqing Luo should have met with danger. Facing these students' bombardment of questioning, they were more or less in a dilemma of how to open their mouths. This bit of hesitation made Devil class's students even more worried. When Xianxia saw this situation, the smile on his face grew brighter. The exhaustion from physical training was swept away at this moment. Just at this moment. Not too far away there was a commotion. It seemed like someone was arguing about something. Following that, they saw a group of people walking on the wind not too far away from the open space. Right at the front was a man and a lady. The man was peerless like a celestial being. The lady was devastatingly beautiful like a fairy. The 2 of them walked hand in hand like a beautiful painting. When the lady's face was completely revealed, the students from various academies immediately recognized her. Student Yiqing Luo. It's student Yiqing Luo. The students looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Not knowing why, that young lady who was covered in blood was obviously in a sorry state. But at this moment, there was a sense of majesty which made one unable to look straight at her. That kind of invisible imposing manner. It made one subconsciously want to submit to her. What was going on? Yiqing Luo's imposing manner was indeed very strong. But she didn't seem to be that strong. When everyone's vision fell onto the man beside Yiqing Luo, who had the same outstanding temperament, their hearts suddenly started to tremble uncontrollably. Purple robe, peerless style. Wasn't this the legendary overlord? Most of the students present knew about this. Yiqing Luo and the rumored overlord had a close relationship. They had not expected that they would actually meet the overlord here. The students were extremely shocked. Some of them kept denying Zhou Xian's identity in their hearts. Someone who looks good in purple might not be the overlord. That's right. His Majesty is very busy every day. How could he have time to come to such a place? I heard that the overlord has been dealing with the war between the Imperial Palace and the Dark Forces recently. This person is definitely not the overlord. However, in the next instant, the 2 instructors recovered from the shock and immediately walked forward, cupping their fists respectfully. Master Di Zun. They were instructors under the ghost martial artist. He had been training students in various academies all year round. Naturally, she was fortunate enough to have seen Zhou Xian's face. Zhou Xian took a look at the 2 instructors and his thin lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. The both of you must be little Luo's instructors. I'll have to trouble the both of you to take care of little Luo. The 2 instructors were stunned. At the same time, he took a glance at Yiqing Luo, who was standing beside Zhou Xian. He immediately understood and quickly put on a smiling face. Overlord is too polite. Student Yiqing Luo is a rare talent. We are just fulfilling our duty as instructors. This scene shocked the students. The students who were still doing physical training fell to the ground one by one. Oh my God. Did they hear wrongly? The overlord actually smiled at the 2 instructors because of Yiqing Luo? And he smiled in such a melancholic manner that made one's heart palpitate. Where was the cold and aloof overlord? Where was the cold and unfeeling overlord? Chapter 1540. Rumors were indeed untrustworthy. While they were chatting, Instructor Luo and Instructor Li walked over one after another. On Instructor Luo's back there was a man who seemed to be seriously injured. In Long Yunzhan's arms was a woman. The group of people came back. Not a single person was missing. Everyone had returned. What's going on? Instructor Ren went up to Instructor Luo. When he saw the face of the man on his back, his face turned pale. This is young Master Zhu? Instructor Luo nodded. Bring young Master Zhu to the wooden shed first and treat his wounds. As he spoke, he was about to walk towards the wooden shed. Instructor Luo, there's no need. Zhou Xian calmly said, I still have some matters to attend to and will be leaving soon. Leave this young Master Zhu to me. This. Instructor Luo stopped in his tracks. He had been following them all the way. How could they not see the open strife and veiled struggle between Zhou Xian and Zhu Wuxia? Zhu Wuxia and Zhou Xian were obviously love rivals. He handed Zhu Wuxia over to Zhou Xian. If anything happened to Zhu Wuxia, Death God Castle and the power behind Zhu Wuxia would not let them off. However, if he didn't hand it over, he would be defying the Dizun's orders. It was hard to get off the tiger. Don't worry, Instructor Luo. I'm not interested in him at all. Zhou Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes as he shot a glance at Zhu Wuxia with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Since this lord is unable to accompany Lil Luo to train, then Zhu Wuxia absolutely cannot stay here. Instructor Luo, why do I suddenly feel like the Overlord's jealousy was so childish? Was this an illusion? Instructor Luo, don't worry, Xian knows what he's doing. Yiqing Luo naturally guessed what Instructor Luo was concerned about as she opened her mouth and spoke in a warm voice. Hand Zhu Wuxia over to Xian. Xian will bring Zhu Wuxia to Death God Castle's people. Seeing that Yiqing Luo had already opened her mouth, Instructor Luo hesitated for a moment but still passed Zhu Wuxia to Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo urged them to take a look at Tong Ziqing's wound. Then he sent this group of people away. The students of Devil class immediately rushed forward. Slowly, only Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian were left. Of course, this also included Zhu Wuxia, who was lying on the side, as well as the surrounding students who were staring at them dumbfoundedly. I'm leaving. Zhou Xian stared at Yiqing Luo's face with an infatuated gaze. Yiqing Luo replied with a soft, N. If he hadn't been sucked into the foundation of the fire lair, he would have died. Zhou Xian had probably returned to the Imperial Palace. But because of her he had stayed for such a long time. He was afraid that the Imperial Palace was already in chaos. Yiqing Luo could not bear for Zhou Xian to leave her. However, he had no choice but to do so. After I'm done, I'll stay with you and watch you grow. Zhou Xian stretched out his long arm and pulled her into his embrace as he gently kissed her on the head. Lil Luo, today's matter, I will absolutely not allow it to happen again. If I find out that you're trying to be brave again, I will use my own method. To imprison you by my side forever. The elegant sandalwood scent on him made Yiqing Luo slightly intoxicated. She replied with a soft N as her arms wrapped tightly around his firm waist. Raising her eyes, she met with that pair of vibrant peach blossom eyes. Her charming eyes curved. Xian, I'll wait for you. Zhou Xian's eyes flashed. He bent over and kissed Yiqing Luo's pink lips fiercely. Chapter 1541. He didn't care about the gazes around him at all. Or perhaps, Zhou Xian did it on purpose. In front of the various academy students, he intentionally acted intimately with Yiqing Luo. It was to announce to the various academy students that Yiqing Luo was his, Zhou Xian's woman. Yiqing Luo had already been labeled as his exclusive Zhou Xian. This not only stopped the other men from having other thoughts towards Yiqing Luo. It also intimidated those students not to attempt to do anything to Yiqing Luo. This kiss didn't last as long as usual. Perhaps it was because she was so infatuated with him in front of everyone. Yiqing Luo felt her entire body turning soft as her body started to heat up slightly. If not for Zhou Xian's embrace around her waist, she might not even be able to stand properly. Xian. Yiqing Luo glared at him resentfully. This stare made the glint in Zhou Xian's eyes dimmer and dimmer. It was like a whirlpool. Something was constantly surging and spinning. Zhou Xian's throat moved as he swallowed. She would never know how alluring she was right now. Because of that kiss, her cheeks were dyed red, revealing traces of enchanting charm. Her pink lips were slightly red and swollen, glistening with a suggestive sheen. This glare. How was that glaring? It was clearly a hint of coquettishness and flirtatious eyes. I'll leave first. When you miss me, don't forget to speak to me through the profound phoenix ring. Zhou Xian felt that if he stayed any longer he might not be able to control himself. His words had just ended without waiting for Yiqing Luo's response. Zhou Xian's figure had already disappeared before their eyes, blending into the air. Yiqing Luo's outstretched hand froze in midair. She took a few steps forward. Then he stopped where he was. The slender hand in midair gradually curled up its fingers one by one. Then he returned it to his chest. The expression on her face was still as calm as ever. But there was a glimmer in her charming eyes. It clearly revealed the reluctance in her heart. Qing Luo, Ziqing's wound seems to have split open. Suddenly Long Yunzhan's shout came from behind. Yiqing Luo readjusted her emotions as she turned around and walked towards Long Yunzhan's direction. The moment she turned around, Long Yunzhan lowered his eyes. His azure blue eyes were filled with unnaturalness. His eyes met Tong Ziqing's beautiful eyes. He was startled and looked away in panic. Therefore he did not see the pain flowing in Tong Ziqing's eyes and the tears of self-mockery. As expected, rejecting his gentleness was the right choice. In Long Yunzhan's heart, there was only Yiqing Luo right from the start. Her wound did not split open. Long Yunzhan wasn't willing to see Yiqing Luo's reluctance towards Dmo Xian, hence he used this excuse to divert Yiqing Luo's attention. Tong Ziqing closed her eyes. A crystal-clear tear rolled down from the corner of his eye. She endured the dull pain in her heart. When she opened her eyes again, she had already recovered her usual cold and arrogant demeanor. By the time Yiqing Luo walked to his side, she suddenly struggled a little in Long Yunzhan's arms. Then a tearing pain came from the burning wound on his back. Her face turned pale as she looked at Yiqing Luo. "Qing Luo, I'm in so much pain." Yiqing Luo hurried over. "Let's go to the wooden shed first, the others prepare clean water." Saying that, she dragged Long Yunzhan as she hurriedly rushed towards the direction of the wooden shed. Long Yunzhan followed behind as he staggered a little. His expression was complicated as he looked at the person in his arms. He felt a warm, sticky feeling coming from his palm. His body suddenly froze. Chapter 1542. Tong Ziqing's pale little face started to sweat. She turned her face away and shut her eyes, ignoring Long Yunzhan. The young man who was carrying her tightened his arms. A soft sigh was heard by the side of her ear. "Ziqing, I'm sorry." That soft sigh made Tong Ziqing's heart throb in pain again. Her nose started to turn sour as her eyes turned red. What she wanted wasn't Long Yunzhan's apology, nor was it Long Yunzhan's guilt. He loved Long Yunzhan. She also knew that Long Yunzhan loved Yiqing Luo. Therefore loving him was only her personal matter, and that was enough. Because of Tong Ziqing's struggle earlier, the wound on her back had indeed split open. Blood stained her clothes. When Yiqing Luo helped Tong Ziqing apply medicine, she dispersed Long Yunzhan. Long Yunzhan stared blankly at Tong Ziqing's direction. Until Yan Shaoyi pushed him away. Then he had some reaction. Before he left, Long Yunzhan's gaze swept past the clothes which had already been unbuttoned, revealing the blood-red wound on his back. His heart suddenly twitched. Feeling heartache? Or feeling guilty? Yan Shaoyi scoffed lightly as she forcefully pushed Long Yunzhan out of the wooden shed's sight. Long Yunzhan didn't reply. The current Long Yunzhan looked extremely dispirited and lost. There wasn't any trace of his usual indifference. His azure blue eyes stared blankly ahead, not knowing what he was thinking about. Looking at Long Yunzhan's look, Yan Shaoyi's mood instantly became agitated as she bit her lips tightly, speaking out for Tong Ziqing. "Ah Zhan, you obviously know that Ziqing likes you and has always liked you. Why can't you place your gaze on her? She didn't hesitate to sacrifice her own life for you. Even to the extent that because of a sentence from you, she didn't hesitate to aggravate her own injury. You know what it means for a woman to have a scar on her body, but she still doesn't care." As Yan Shaoyi spoke, her voice was already choking. Her heart ached for Tong Ziqing. Her heart ached, her heart ached. Her heart ached, her heart ached. The one Tong Ziqing fell in love with was such a cold man. Tong Ziqing fell in love with such a cold man. After some time, his azure blue eyes blinked as his focus fell onto Yiqing Luo. His expression was cold and his voice was calm. "What about you? Xianxia has always liked you. Why can't you look at him?" Yan Shaoyi's words were stuck in her throat. Long Yunzhan didn't force her. He just stared at her calmly. Yan Shaoyi had nowhere to hide. She clenched her fists and said, "That's different. I already have someone I like in my heart, so I can't possibly like Xianxia. How do you know that I don't have anyone I like?" Long Yunzhan's voice was still as calm as ever. But in Yan Shaoyi's ears, it was like a clap of thunder. far away from the flame lair on the back of the nine-tailed fox. The two men were speechless. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Zhou Xian, who was lying at the end, looked coldly at Zhou Xian as he spoke in a chilly voice. What exactly do you want? Zhou Xian replied without turning his head. I'll send you back. Are you that kind? Zhou Xian sneered coldly, the coldness in his eyes becoming even more intense. This lord naturally isn't that kind. Zhou Xian narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes as his lips curled into an arc. To this lord, you still don't have any qualifications to stir up any waves in front of this lord. The meaning behind his words. He totally didn't put Zhou Xian in his eyes. Chapter 1543. Every single word and sentence was declaring the relationship between him and Yiqing Luo. Inside and outside, it was displaying the sweetness between him and Yiqing Luo. Zhou Xian's face grew increasingly pale. A pair of cold eyes, suffused with a biting chill, stared icily at Zhou Xian's complacent, smiling face. So, you totally don't have to worry about what this lord will do to you. Zhou Xian calmly accepted his offensive gaze. That smug tone caused the anger and jealousy in Zhou Xian's heart to burn even brighter. Zhou Xian, everything is just the beginning. Yiqing Luo has already recalled everything that we had experienced in the past. She will return to my side, it's just a matter of time. Zhou Xian's eyes were cold and deep, and his expression was extremely cold. His voice grew colder and colder. It seeped into one's heart and gave rise to an indescribable chill. We still don't know who the final winner will be. Zhou Xian's declaration of war did not move Zhou Xian in the slightest. On the contrary, Zhou Xian's lips curled upwards as he gave an extremely ridiculing smile. Zhou Xian, if you really love Lil Luo, how would you not know Lil Luo's character? That smile was like a sharp blade that pierced Zhou Xian's eyes. Zhou Xian's body tensed up, and a trace of deep coldness flashed across his eyes. Yes. He didn't know Yiqing Luo's character at all. The Yiqing Luo in his memory and the current Yiqing Luo were two extremes. But no matter if it was the former Yiqing Luo or the current Yiqing Luo, he didn't understand her at all. If it was said that the former Yiqing Luo was timid and weak, but under that kind of situation she was able to save her who was covered in injuries and almost died. He could even wittily deceive Yi Tianquang. If it was said that the former Yiqing Luo had her own intelligence and bravery. However, when she was bullied by her brothers and sisters or servants, she could only endure it bitterly and did not know how to resist. They had been together for nearly half a month. He still didn't understand Yiqing Luo. Not to mention the current Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo had recalled the past. Would she really return to his side? Zhou Xian actually did not have much confidence. What's more, he felt that, in Yiqing Luo's heart, there was no longer the beautiful memories that they had experienced together 5 years ago. But when she saw Zhou Xian proudly proclaiming his sovereignty, Zhou Xian's heart could not bear it no matter what. Zhou Xian, you're really a very pitiful person. Zhou Xian cast a sidelong glance at the man whose face was ashen as he laughed out softly. Zhou Xian lowered his cold eyes and suppressed the dull pain in his heart. If you truly love Lil Luo, then you should be able to sense who exactly is the person you love. Even if it's the same face, the same body and the same identity, the feeling is still different. What you're obsessed with is the past Xiaoqing Luo and not the current Xiao Luo. This point, even you yourself have not discovered it? Zhou Xian said with a smile yet not a smile. Every word was spat out very clearly. Zhou Xian's ashen face immediately stiffened. His brows creased tightly as he stared at Zhou Xian in astonishment, as though he was questioning the meaning behind his words. Zhou Xian shifted his line of sight away, not bothering with his offensive gaze. Zhou Xian's heart suddenly tightened at this moment, as though there was an icy cold big hand tightly clutching his heart. It made him feel a suffocating, unbearable feeling. Zhou Xian's words. What did he mean by that? What did he mean by the past Xiaoqing Luo and not the current Xiao Luo? Chapter 1544. Flame Nest Wooden Shed. Yiqing Luo applied the medicine on Tong Ziqing again. Just lie down properly and don't move around recklessly. Bear with the pain, itchiness and whatnot. If the wounds split open again, don't force me to let you sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. Tong Ziqing exhaled a light breath from her nose as a response. Yiqing Luo packed the healing items in her hands, picked up the basin which had already been dyed red and left the wooden shed. Just as he left the wooden shed, he saw Long Yunzhan standing at the side with a cold expression. His eyes seemed to be flowing with an incomprehensible meaning. Hearing footsteps, Long Yunzhan regained his senses from his deep thoughts as he turned and fixed his gaze on Yiqing Luo. His gaze finally landed on the bright red basin in Yiqing Luo's hands. Long Yunzhan's thin lips moved slightly and his voice was a little bitter. After pausing for a moment he asked, "How's her injury? If she cooperates she will at most recover within 3 days." Yiqing Luo passed the basin of water to Long Yunzhan. "I've applied medicine on her and now she needs to rest. After all, she's injured because of you, so take good care of her for these 3 days." Long Yunzhan stared blankly at the basin full of bright red water. That redness dyed his azure-blue eyes with a reddish hue. There was a dull pain in his heart. "I will take good care of her." He opened his mouth and spat out a few words in a hoarse voice. He lowered his eyes, carried the basin of blood and walked in another direction. Yiqing Luo looked at his back as she gave a long sigh. Hopefully he would be able to detect Ziqing's feelings for him as soon as possible. Yiqing Luo took a look at the darkening sky and rushed towards the direction of the open space. Most of the students had already completed the 5 rounds of physical training. They were exhausted and panting. However, there were also about 300 people who were still struggling desperately. By the time Yiqing Luo rushed to the open space, there were already hundreds of people lying on the open space, densely packed together. Devil classes students immediately went forward and surrounded Yiqing Luo, expressing their concern in a flurry. For a moment the entire open space was bustling with noise and excitement. The other students who had fallen to the ground also pricked up their ears to listen to their movements. Yiqing Luo suddenly disappeared. No one knew where he had gone. Master Gui Wu and Instructor Zhou personally went to look for them. In the end, not only did Di Zun accompany him back, he also met the noble young Master Chu. Young Master Zhu was even injured. There were also students from the devil class who were injured. All the students were extremely curious. He wanted to know what had happened to Yiqing Luo and the others. Among the crowd, 2 pairs of venomous eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. These 2 people were Xianxia and Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo, that slut, why would she return? And he was unscathed? Wasn't she supposed to have died inside the flame lair? Why did she come back? Xianxia was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Her beautiful face was also extremely distorted because of her jealousy. Zhou Xian, who was standing to the side, heaved a sigh of relief, but she also felt uneasy. Yiqing Luo returned safely. This also meant that Xianxia still needed her help. But when Yiqing Luo returned, she would definitely not let her off. Zhou Xian secretly cast a sidelong glance at Xianxia. Xianxia's distorted face was filled with viciousness. And around them, there were quite a number of students who shot their gazes over because of Xianxia's unconcealed murderous intent. When they saw Xianxia's expression, all of them started to discuss in disdainful whispers. However, Xianxia's attention was placed on Yiqing Luo. Chapter 1545. Zhou Xian didn't go out of her way to remind him. She sneered in her heart. If not for the fact that she wanted to stay in the Heavenly Academy, she would not even bother to serve Xianxia, who looked smart but was actually as dumb as a pig. She had maintained the image of a cold goddess for many years. At this moment he actually couldn't hold on any longer. Then she would let the other students discover her true colors. Zhou Xian restrained the coldness in her eyes. Did Xianxia really think that she was a fool? Burning the bridge after crossing the river. He even wanted to kill her. Would she still be as obedient to Xianxia as she was before? Zhou Xian suddenly remembered that 2 hours ago, when she had gone to find a secluded place to pee, she had run into someone there. The man's words echoed in his mind. "Bring Xianxia over, I can help you. To let Yiqing Luo die without a burial ground." Xiaolian. Suddenly he heard a low, sharp shout. Zhou Xian snapped out of her thoughts and met Xianxia's resentful eyes. She felt a chill down her spine and replied in a low voice, Chen goddess. You said earlier that someone can help me kill Yiqing Luo?" Xianxia's voice seemed to be wrapped in a layer of frost, his whole body releasing a strong murderous aura. Zhou Xian nodded vigorously. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. "Alright, bring me to that person. But there's one more condition. Zhou Xian was overjoyed, but then she pretended to be hesitant. Xianxia frowned. What? That person said, if he wants Yiqing Luo to die, you must cooperate with the plan. Zhou Xian replied. Xianxia's face darkened. Get her to cooperate with the plan? Was he thinking of using her as a weapon? Zhou Xian could tell what Xianxia was thinking at a glance. She advised in a low voice, Goddess Xianxian, since that person took the initiative to look for you, he must be sincere in cooperating with you. It's fine even if he's just using you. You and him can mutually benefit from each other. To put it plainly, Xianxian went to see that person. Weren't they just using each other? Otherwise, on what basis would that person kill Yiqing Luo for Xianxian? It was just that the both of them had an irreconcilable enmity with Yiqing Luo, hence they were cooperating with each other. Xianxian pondered for a moment, but he did not give a direct answer. We'll talk about it after we meet. Zhou Xian inwardly cursed, smelly whore, but on the surface she nodded obediently and said, then tonight? I'll take you to see that person. Tonight? Xianxian's expression froze. That person is here? There were only students from the various academies here. Following them were Gui Wu and the 5 instructors, as well as dozens of teachers and elders from the main courtyard. Was that person a student or one of these teachers and elders? Yes. Zhou Xian nodded. That person isn't one of our students. It seems like he's hiding in a dark corner of the blazing flame lair, observing everything here. He should have a huge hatred for Yiqing Luo. All right, I'll meet him tonight. Xianxian clenched his fists tightly as a murderous glint flashed in his eyes. The color of the sky gradually turned dark. After dinner, the students only rested for an hour before they were asked to go for a night run. Even at night, the temperature in the flame nest was extremely high. The feeling of being burned by the raging fire didn't show any signs of stopping. Intense heat. High-intensity physical training. These students' mouths were already parched and they found it hard to swallow their food. But if they didn't eat, they didn't have the energy to endure the devastation below. These pampered young masters, how could they bear this kind of life? Chapter 1546. Not long after, the students from the various academies had already emptied their water bags. When they went to ask the instructors for their water bags, they were rejected. It was stated clearly that each person could only receive 2 water bags a day. Moreover, in order to receive the water bags, they had to complete the tasks assigned by the instructors before they were eligible to receive it. When the news reached the ears of the students, those students who were preparing for the night run, all collapsed onto the ground. In such a hot climate, if there was no water supply, they had no way to survive. Their mouths were dry and they had to undergo brutal training. This was simply asking for their lives. Moreover, 2 water bags a day was not even enough for them to drink a mouthful. The students were cursing in their hearts, but no one dared to speak out. All right. All of you, keep your spirits up. Run 3 rounds around the air and you can rest. Instructor Luo's loud voice was extremely loud in the night. Instructor Li immediately chimed in aggressively. Look at all of you, which part of you look like energetic students? Look at the students from the devil class, they still completed the 5 physical training. Why didn't they complain about being tired? Instructor Li's words were meant to motivate the students. But at this juncture, everyone looked at the students from the devil class. All of them were refreshed and there was not a single drop of sweat on them. How could their hearts be balanced? Especially looking at them, each and every one of them was holding a water bag, drinking water contentedly. Their hearts almost collapsed. They were obviously students from the academy. Why was the treatment so different? Those perverts from the devil class, how could they be so perverted? Not only did they not admire the devil class in the slightest. Instead, from envy it turned into jealousy and finally into hatred. Human nature was like this. They were a little unhappy. They hoped that the whole world would be unhappy with them. And those elite students from the Heavenly Academy were also unable to balance their hearts. Immediately. Get ready. Start running. Instructor Li naturally did not ignore the gazes of the students looking at the devil class. Towards these students who did not know how to improve themselves, but were jealous of those who were better than them, he felt a surge of irritation in his heart. He simply could not be bothered to talk to these students. Instructor Li's character had always been irritable. No matter how exhausted the students were, they still perked up and started the night run. Devil class students were far ahead. Yiqing Luo had been paying close attention to the surrounding movements. He increased his perception to the maximum. Even with Gui Wu and Zhou Mo present, he was still a little worried. The people from the dark forces did not take action when they were not around. This point really made Yiqing Luo unable to understand. Logically speaking, when Zhou Mo, Gui Wu and the others were trapped in the foundation of the fire lair, it was the best time for the dark forces to strike. Otherwise he wouldn't have used those flame beasts to prevent them from leaving the base. Yiqing Luo was still speculating on the reason why the dark forces didn't take action. Therefore she had to be vigilant at all times. And this vigilance, which made Yiqing Luo totally unaware of it. Kitty Li, who had always been by her side and sticking close to her, had disappeared without her noticing. Oh. Kitty Li was jogging behind her sister as her bright eyes stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo's face. His eyes were filled with unconcealable admiration. The next moment her body felt light. Someone tugged at his arm. Then she fell into a wide embrace. Chapter 1547. Woo woo. Kitty Li's mouth was gagged so she couldn't speak and could only struggle with all her might. His small hands were tightly clasped on the arm across his waist. Round nails embedded in his flesh. The man behind her didn't even make a sound. Cat. A student beside him sensed it and called out. When he saw the person behind Kitty Li, he stopped talking. By the time Yiqing Luo turned around, Kitty Li was no longer by her side. Where's the cat? Yiqing Luo frowned and asked the student who made the noise. The young man looked at the dense forest not far away with a strange expression on his face. She was taken by Instructor Zhou. Zhou Mo? Yiqing Luo thought of the foundation grounds. Zhou Mo, who had been hugging Kitty Li and refused to let go. His brows twitched a few times. This Zhou Mo? Could it be that he had taken a fancy to her family's kitten? However, since Zhou Mo took Kitty Li away, Kitty Li should be fine as well. Yiqing Luo didn't think too much as she called out to the devil class students and continued with their night jogging. In the dense forest, Kitty Li finally stopped in the midst of the kidnapping. The headscarf on his head had been taken off at some point. She pricked up her black ears and twitched. Apart from the sound of the warm wind blowing, the sound of students running could no longer be heard. The hand covering his mouth slowly moved away. Kitty Li angrily opened her mouth and quickly bit the hand. Her pearly white teeth left a neat bite mark on the back of his hand. She bit his hand and snorted coldly, "Frivolous man. If you don't let go of Kitty, Kitty will scratch you to death with its sharp claws." She didn't use much strength. When she bit the back of Zhou Mo's hand, she didn't feel any pain. Instead, she felt a kind of numbing sensation. Zhou Mo's thin red lips curled up slightly. Listening to Kitty Li's coquettish voice, a trace of playfulness flashed through his long and narrow eyes. "If you could bear to, you would have scratched me long ago. Up until now, you've only bitten me once. That's enough to prove, little wild cat, you can't bear to see me get hurt." Zhou Mo's low and hoarse voice carried a strong magnetism. He stifled a low chuckle. Beside the swaying black cat's ear came his husky voice, "Little wild cat, you're feeling sorry for me." That warm breath made Kitty Li's ears itch. His whole body actually felt a little weak. Her body trembled slightly as she avoided Zhou Mo's lips. Her face turned even redder as she said, What nonsense are you talking about? Kitty will not feel sorry for you." She was furious and struggled. But how could her strength be a match for Zhou Mo? However, her struggle only made Zhou Mo hold her even tighter. Kitty Li's delicate little face was flushed red. She was angry but also embarrassed. "Let go of me, you lecherous instructor." Kitty Li gritted her teeth, her little claws desperately trying to pry open his hand. Lustful. Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows and a faint luster appeared in his eyes. He stared at the pink lips in front of him. His eyes flickered with a gloomy luster. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Kitty Li's chin. His long and narrow eyes formed a charming and seductive arc. "I haven't done anything, and you're already saying that I'm lustful if I don't do anything. Won't I be letting down your good reputation?" Kitty Li's black eyes suddenly widened, her face full of disbelief. Before she could react, a ball of warmth fell on Kitty Li's lips. Zhou Mo's kiss was not very forceful. It was like a dragonfly touching the surface of the water. But there was a hint of inexplicable affection. Chapter 1548. You You. Kitty Lee's eyes reddened from the kiss, and the hand that was beating his chest gradually lost its strength. Zhou stared at the girl in his arms. The lips that were kissed swollen. The beautiful eyes that were half resentful, clear and moist, were stained with a thin layer of mist. The blush on her cheeks was extremely alluring. His heart seemed to have been hit hard by something. He quietly stared at Kitty Lee's face and his heart was in turmoil. For some reason when he saw this little girl he had an inexplicable urge to play with her. He also made a move. After being teased more and more he actually fell in love with this feeling. This little wild cat of the orc race had a fatal attraction to him. This attraction came extremely suddenly. He himself did not understand what was the reason for this. When Kitty Lee raised her eyes with a blushing face and glared fiercely at the frivolous man who took advantage of her. But it crashed into his extremely deep and dark eyes that were glistening with flowing light. Maybe it was because of that kiss. His eyes were faintly flickering with an indistinct red glow. It made that handsome face look even more devilish. Kitty Lee's heart trembled. Her heart suddenly began to beat uncontrollably. She hurriedly lowered her eyes, not daring to look at Zhou's eyes. She seemed to stare for another second. Her heart was about to jump out of her throat. She actually felt that this frivolous man was so good-looking. She had almost been hooked by the frivolous man's devilish appearance and had almost lost her soul and 7 spirits. No way. She absolutely could not be moved by this frivolous man's appearance. Kitty Lee kept warning herself in her heart. As a cat-beast princess of the orc race, she could not be moved by a human. Even if, in the cat-beast race, a female who was hugged and kissed by a male must stay together. But Zhou was not a half-orc of the cat-beast race. Zhou was a human. So this rule of the cat-beast race did not count. Kitty Lee tried hard to calm her mind, her arms began to struggle. Frivolous man, let go of Kitty. If you are angry, go find other female students. I'm sure those female students will be especially willing to serve you. You want me to find another woman? Zhou's face darkened as he grabbed Kitty Lee's waist. For some reason he felt that Kitty Lee's words were extremely harsh. Kitty Lee was frightened and shrank back. But her waist was being held very tightly. She had no way out. Pursing her red lips, she lowered her head. Why did you have to provoke Kitty? Yes, yours truly wants to provoke you. So what? Zhou squinted his eyes and shot out a sharp, cold glare. His slender fingers lifted Kitty Lee's lower jaw forcefully. He forced her to look into his eyes. Her watery eyes were like the vast starry sky. There was even a hazy mist on it. The more he tolerated it, the more tenderness he felt for her. Zhou subconsciously relaxed his grip. A low and hoarse voice rang out softly. If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't have worked. Kitty Lee's heart skipped a beat. Soon after, she was unable to adapt to the rhythm of the beating. Somewhere in the bottom of her heart, it was soft and melted into a piece. She had to admit that Zhou's flirting skills were definitely top-notch. For a girl like Kitty Lee who was innocent and ignorant of the world, he was easily flirted with. Kitty Lee's face was flushed red. She struggled to break free from his fingers and turned her face away, refusing to give him an answer. Zhou raised his eyebrows. The smile at the corner of his mouth turned into an evil smile. His eyes were also filled with a strong smile. Chapter 1549. The corners of Zhou's lips curled up. His mellow voice was extremely alluring. Little wild cat, if this young master hears any words that this young master doesn't like from your mouth again, this young master will use this young master's method to teach you a lesson. He narrowed his eyes and glanced meaningfully at her slightly swollen red lips. That gaze seemed to imply something. No matter how innocent Kitty Lee was, she understood. Her face instantly turned red and she raised her fist and punched Zhou's smirking face. You're shameless. Damn it. This lecherous instructor was simply too shameful, didn't he? Shameless lecherous instructor. Do you remember what I said? Zhou held her little fist that was coming towards him. His large and thick palm held the small and delicate hand tightly. Kitty Lee did not answer and wanted to use her other fist to hit him. However, under his deep and profound gaze, Yizichen's eyes were filled with deep meaning. Kitty Lee's hand that was in the air slowly dropped down. Her little face was white and red at the same time. Zhou raised his eyebrows and smiled devilishly. He bent down and his devilish face enlarged in Kitty Lee's eyes. That invasive gaze made Kitty Lee subconsciously cover her mouth. Zhou could not help but laugh. He felt that it was quite interesting to tease this little wild cat once in a while. But his words seemed to have scared the little wild cat. If she avoided him, it would be troublesome. Thinking of this, Zhou did not forcefully attack again. Instead, he stretched out his other hand and used his slender fingers to play with the hair in front of Kitty Lee's forehead. His low and hoarse voice sounded in her ear. "Little wild cat, let's stop here for today. In the future we will." Before the last word long could be finished, Zhou suddenly tightened his arm. Kitty Lee fell into his arms. Kitty Lee was shocked and struggled in fear. Her little face was pale, thinking that Zhou wanted to do something. But Zhou's expression suddenly became serious, and his shimmering red phoenix eyes were like a keen cheetah, scanning the surroundings. As a beastman, Kitty Lee had a very strong sense. She immediately stopped struggling. "What's wrong? There's someone here." Zhou tightened his arms around her slender waist and his body swayed. He had already disappeared into the night. "Did you see anything?" Zhou lowered his head and asked the woman in his arms. Kitty Lee was a little stunned. Hearing Zhou's reply, she hurriedly raised her eyes and looked ahead with the help of the feline race's night vision. All he could see was a dense forest. Not a single person was seen. Zhou saw that she did not speak for a long time, so he stopped chasing. A pair of sharp almond-shaped eyes swept the surroundings. After a while, he said in a low voice, "Let's go back first." "Oh." Kitty Lee reacted and quickly nodded. Because of that unfamiliar aura, he was unable to chase after that figure. This caused Zhou to lose the desire to tease the cat. There were simply too many students at the outer perimeter of the fire nest. They must ensure the safety of every student. If an unknown person were to sneak into the flame nest at this time, they had to catch him before he revealed his intentions. He had to rush back and discuss this matter with Gui Wu. The two of them looked around again, and after confirming that nothing was out of the ordinary, they hurried back to the open space. In the depths of the forest, in the dark night, a slender figure gradually appeared. That figure seemed to have fused with the night. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see that there was someone there. The most shocking thing was, in the arms of that figure there was a petite figure. The surrounding flames flickered. The figure in the arms of that person was vaguely revealed. That beautiful face that could make one's soul swoon. Chapter 1550. Deep into the night. The students were exhausted after the night run. How would they have the energy to fight for a bed with the other students? After running 5 laps, they received a water bag. The students fell onto the ground and fell into a deep sleep. Those students who had a bed returned to their own beds to sleep. But moments later, the entire raging flames lair fell into silence. Yiqing Luo looked at Kitty Lee, who was sleeping with her side facing her, her little hand still clutching her sleeve tightly. In her mind, she was thinking about what Kitty Lee told her when she came back. The outer perimeter of the raging flames lair, in the enchantment set up by the main elder. There were outsiders who didn't belong to the various academies. Moreover, that person sensed that he was discovered by Zhou and immediately left. His speed was so fast that even Zhou couldn't match up to him. Who could it be? Although Yiqing Luo had never experienced or seen Zhou's ability, but she knew clearly that Zhou was on good terms with Gui Wu. After all, he wasn't someone who could be underestimated. Zhou couldn't even catch up to him. It could be seen how strong that outsider was. Could it be someone from the dark forces? She wondered if Gui Wu and Zhou had come to a conclusion. Just as she was pondering, she suddenly heard a rustling sound not far away. Following that, she saw 2 people crawling up from the corner of the wooden shed. Taking advantage of the cover of the night, the 2 of them, one in front and one behind, quietly left the wooden shed. Yiqing Luo's night vision was not bad. She recognized the 2 of them at one glance. They were Xianxia and Zhou Xian. Her slender brows creased slightly. These 2. Why didn't they sleep properly in the middle of the night and wanted to leave like thieves? What were they trying to do? An ominous premonition arose from the bottom of her heart. She got up and was about to chase after them. Kitty Lee held her sleeves tightly. By the time Yiqing Luo carefully untied Kitty Lee's fingers, the 2 of them had long disappeared. Yiqing Luo looked at the direction where Xianxia and Zhou Xian had left and quietly chased after them. But she had increased her perception to the maximum. But she still didn't discover any figure. In a dark corner of the dense forest not far away, Xianxia stopped under a fire tree under Zhou Xian's lead. Xianxia looked around and felt a chill run down his spine. There was a hair-raising atmosphere. "Where is the person you're talking about?" Xianxia asked snappily. Zhou Xian shook her head. "She only told us to wait here." Xianxia's expression immediately darkened. "That person told us to wait here, so we have to wait here?" His heart was filled with uncontrollable rage. "What's in that brain of yours? You don't even know who the other party is, yet you believe him so easily. It was a waste of time for me to follow you here." Xianxia flicked her sleeves and turned around, intending to go back the way she came. However, she turned around. Then he met a pair of... His eyes were as cold as ice. In the dark night it was extremely horrifying. Xianxia felt a chill run down her spine, and her delicate body immediately tensed up. In the night, a slender figure was faintly discernible. It was like a phantom, illusory. However, upon closer inspection, one could clearly see that person's figure. Xianxia's heart trembled. She immediately took out the Tianling scepter and looked at that person vigilantly. But she heard Zhou Xian's joyful voice from behind. "Miss, you're finally here." Chapter 1551. That person slowly walked out. In the dark night he was faintly discernible, extremely unreal. But Xianxia saw. In that person's arms was a petite figure. Under the weak firelight, Xianxia could vaguely discern. That was a lady. It was an extremely beautiful woman who looked like a fairy. Xianxia suddenly understood. The person who wanted to cooperate with her was not that person who looked like a shadow, but the lady in the shadow's arms. Indeed, she heard that lady's clear voice rang. "Miss Z, I won't beat around the bush with you. Since you followed Miss Zhu here, it means that you have agreed to our cooperation." Xianxia frowned as she looked at her vigilantly, not replying. The lady didn't mind as she continued. "Since we want to cooperate, then I will directly reveal my identity." She patted the shadow who was hugging her. The shadow moved and a weak ray of light was emitted from his chest. That was a small luminous pearl. The light revealed the lady's face completely. "I am Fengling, Overlord's fiancée." Fengling's lips curled slightly as her eyes turned slightly cold. "Yiqing Luo, that slut, whenever she sees a man she would resort to all sorts of methods to seduce him. Now even my brother D has fallen into her trap." Mentioning this point, the expression on Fengling's face revealed some malevolence and hatred. This person. Xianxia felt that she looked familiar. It seemed that they had met before at the West Lawn Square during the class confrontation. At that time this lady called Fengling was the self-proclaimed fiancée of Zhou Xian. Xianxia was able to get to where she was today. Naturally she wasn't some ignorant person. Hearing Fengling's words, her brain turned and roughly guessed the enmity between Fengling and Yiqing Luo. No matter if the fiancé which Fengling mentioned was true or false, Xianxia could be completely rest assured. Because Fengling really loved Zhou Xian. She would definitely hate Yiqing Luo who got Zhou Xian. This cooperation wasn't impossible. Moreover, Xianxia could tell that Fengling was seriously injured. That was why she allowed the shadow to become her legs, bringing her around the flame lair. This injury. Xianxia recalled that in the evening when Yiqing Luo and the rest returned, they were covered in blood. He could roughly guess it. Perhaps it was Yiqing Luo who had hurt Fengling. Thinking of this, Xianxia slightly narrowed his eyes and regained his usual noble and cold demeanor. "How confident is Miss Feng? If Miss Z is willing to cooperate with us, I'm 100% sure." Fengling smiled mysteriously. Xianxia raised her brows. "So confident?" "Of course." A hint of madness and infatuation shone in Wind Chime's eyes. "To get Brother D back I can sacrifice everything." Women who went crazy for love were the most terrifying. Xianxia naturally understood this feeling. She pondered for a moment, clenched her fists and smiled arrogantly. "All right, I agree to cooperate with you." In the darkness no one could see. Wisps of black aura lingered above their heads, not dissipating for a long time. The second half of the night, Xianxia and Zhou Xian returned to the wooden shed. There was a smile on their faces. It was clear that he was chatting happily with Wind Chimes. However, their smiles soon froze on their faces. The light from the fire elongated the silhouette standing outside the wooden shed. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest, leaning against the tree. Her green and white uniform under the illumination of the fire was dyed red. That black hair which was casually scattered on her shoulders fluttered freely.